Oak City Move is a podcast on WKNC's 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh where we highlight people and organizations creating positive change in the Triangle and beyond. Oak City Move can be heard on air every other Monday on 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh or online at wknc.org/listen. For episodes and more information, go to our blog at blog.wknc.org or follow us on SoundCloud at WKNC 881. Hello, 88.1 WKNC Raleigh. The song you just heard was Sweaty Linen by Surf Ninja 3. I'm Sophia Magnanini, your host, and you're listening to Oak City Move. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Sara Abernethy, founder of Hill Kitchen Brewing, host of the podcast Her Seat at the Table, and visionary entrepreneur. So first off, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And if you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about yourself. I know you've launched several successful business and projects across the Triangle area, and if you kind of wanted to give some background on what first inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
I thank you so much for having me. First of all, it is a delight to be here with you. I have definitely had a winding journey. If there's anything that I could tell myself 20 years ago, it would be just let the universe take the wheel because you have no idea what is in store for you. My first pursuit professionally was actually music performance. I come from a very musical family. I am a Raleigh native. My dad is a guitar player, 12-string guitar virtuoso, and my mom is a trained concert pianist and was a piano teacher for many years. So it was definitely a creative sort of upbringing here in Raleigh. And I pursued vocal performance at UNC Chapel Hill. And shortly thereafter, just ping-ponged around for about a decade trying to just suck the marrow out of life. And as I was pursuing a career as a performer, of course, I had many opportunities to work in restaurants, which allowed me the flexibility during the day that I needed to pursue performing and auditions, but also paid the bills. And truly, some of my favorite professional moments were in restaurants and being a server. I loved connecting with people. I found it came very naturally to me to be more of a salesperson and more of a sort of let me be your cruise director for this experience you're about to have. And I did end up getting, at the time I was in New York City, I got ejected. The universe was like, okay, time for you to go. I mean, I was let go from my job, all of these other performing opportunities didn't work out. I mean, I remember walking out of this building being like, oh my God, I have nothing on my calendar for the rest of my life. But the universe was trying to send me to California, and the reason was that is where I met my husband, Chris Borison, who is a career set designer, carpenter, and technical director. And it was a beautiful time living in Southern California, but we decided to move back to Raleigh, my hometown, about 10 years ago, just wanting to pursue a little bit more flexibility financially and a place where we could really build the next chapter of our lives and start a family. And lo and behold, we had an opportunity to take over the iconic location of 201 South Boylan Street, where Hill is today. It used to be the Boylan Bridge Brew Pub. If you've been in Raleigh for decades, you might remember that concept. It was actually one of the first craft breweries in Raleigh.
Oh, period. Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, before the craft brewing movement really blew up about 20 years ago. It was one of the first. It turns out that our theater skills were a perfect match for a restaurant situation. I think that might surprise a lot of people, but the creative problem solving, the scrappiness, the grit, the teamwork, the ability to translate a full sensory experience from nothing into a magical creation that you learn how to do in a theater environment applies directly to a restaurant environment as well. It's a performance. And so, yes, I mean, I've certainly had a winding career path. I've done sales, I've done fundraising, I've now done hospitality. My day to day these days, there's like really no one day that's alike because I'm juggling so many things, and we have two little gremlins at home um, that are wonderful. But that's a little bit about me and how I came to be in this moment.
Well, that's really awesome, especially the part because I feel like a lot of people can kind of connect to wanting to do something originally and then it not really working out as you planned, but then it kind of blossoms into all these other opportunities, which is so cool. Especially you saying how the like performance of it all works into the restaurant business also, and how it just kind of becomes one big like almost like you guys are just doing your own like stage act, like your own play, but just putting doing it through the restaurant, which is so
It's
cool.
so real. There's a very funny play called Noises Off. If there are any listeners that are like into theater, maybe you have seen or heard of Noises Off. It is so funny. It's about this, it's like what happens putting on a show from the audience's perspective and then what's actually happening backstage during the showtime, which is just like utter hilarious chaos. It can be very much like that in a restaurant environment, depending on the day, depending what piece of equipment is broken, depending on who did or didn't show up for work that day, or like God knows what else is happening. But it's definitely never dull. And those of you out there who are choosing to pursue something right now that you love and that are passionate about, you really never know how you can shape that skill set into a career.
No, exactly. Because, yeah, like you were saying, it's almost like one big play where it's like the servers, the hostess, they're kind of like the front show part. And then everyone in the back is like the stage managers and everything, which that's really cool. And also, it's just kind of, as a Raleigh native, what has it meant to you to help shape the city's restaurant and brewing scene?
This is a great question, and it does tie into our name, Why Hill. When I say that to people for the first time, they sort of like look at me funny and they're like, "What? Like why? Like WHY question mark?" But in fact, a Y, which is spelled WYE, is a type of railroad junction. And our location, if you're familiar with Raleigh, we are right on the edge of downtown Raleigh on the Boylan Bridge. And
Mm.
what people know of the Boylan Bridge is it's where you go to take your photos, whether you're having a headshot done or you're having engagement session or you're having prom photos or whatever, because behind that bridge is just this gorgeous uninterrupted view of the Raleigh skyline. It is such a peak Raleigh moment. And the reason why you have that great view under the bridge is because the Y, WYE, which is where the railroad tracks split apart, happens right there. And it protects the view from our patio, which is right next to that bridge. And that junction is where the trains change direction on their course. Actually, Sophie, I think you can you see my note taker in
Yes.
our Zoom window here? So in the H of Y Hill, this is the Y, the railroad track
Oh my
junction.
gosh, wait, that's so cool.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, so we built that into our logo. And this was 8 years ago when we got the keys to that building. And certainly it's been a very eventful 8 years for Raleigh in growth and development. But at the time, we were just so, for me as a Raleigh native to come back home and see the evolution of the city and see the momentum that was happening, it was so exciting to feel like I could be a direct part of that. And we wanted to honor the iconic location of that building and its connection to Raleigh. But Y Hill is really a tribute to the changing direction of the city and how we can watch our city skyline evolve from our awesome patio with a beer in hand, hopefully.
No, that's so cool. I never really, I mean, I was one of the other people that didn't know what why meant, but that is so cool. And also just so, it's amazing. It really like gives testament to Raleigh and to the area and location itself. So that's really cool. And also I love how
And
you put it in, no, you're all good. I love how you put it into the title as well, or the logo. which it's just
We
a
had an awesome creative team that helped us with our branding package. I'll give a shout out to Mike Rosado. Whoop, whoop.
whoop.
If anyone out there is interested in a rebrand, he was fabulous to work with.
No, that's awesome. Along with Why Hill Kitchen, I know you have so many other avenues and projects. Uh, what motivates you to continue creating new concepts and brands?
I like to say this is my toxic trait. Like this this sort of like elder millennial sort of ADHD mode where I I feel like I can't have an interest or a hobby without coming up with a business plan for it. Um, but I do feel like I just have this unstoppable creative energy. I have a very busy brain. I am very comfortable with a lot of risk, and I'm very comfortable taking a leap of faith and trying something to see if it will or will not work. My experience as a performer and pounding the pavement and putting myself out there for auditions over and over and over again really helped me build this musculature of being able to put something out there and give it a try and then be okay if it doesn't work out, and knowing that if things that you put out in the world don't work out, it's not a reflection on you as an individual or you as a worthwhile person. So if I don't leverage this creative energy that I have, I will go insane. I just will go insane. Although over the years, and especially since having children, I have gotten better at catching the idea, writing it down, and then leaving it for a second, instead of just trying to pursue every shiny thing that comes across my vision. My gift to the restaurant business for sure is my idea machine. And I will say that maybe 9 out of 10 of my ideas are really bad and insane. But one of those 10 ideas is really good and ends up being a really awesome endeavor for the business, whatever that may be.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
Should I
sorry.
tell you about some of the ventures?
Yes, please. That was just gonna be my next question.
So, our hospitality group is Y Hill Hospitality, since our baby Y Hill was the original location. We do also have a second restaurant location in RTP. It is called Glass House Kitchen. It is fabulous, really, truly a very unique, I would call it an upscale polished casual dining experience. It's definitely more upscale than Y Hill, which offers a more casual gastropub brewery environment,
Mhm.
whereas Glass House is small plates, fabulous wine program, fabulous cocktails, and the dining room there really is spectacular. You're in a space that is 2 stories worth of glass on 3 sides of you. So you feel like you are outdoors no matter what time of year with all the comforts of being indoors. So that's in RTP. We opened Glass House Kitchen in 2022. So we'll be celebrating 4 years this year, the same year that I had my first child, which was not something I will ever repeat. That was nuts. And then last year we soft launched, and this year we officially launched with our beverage production arm of the business, a THC seltzer called Tree Time THC. Alcohol is going through a moment. In general, people are drinking less. They're drinking less alcohol. They're looking for more NA zero proof options, whether they're staying home or whether they're going out. So this was our response to that. It's like such an awesome product. I've never really been much of a THC consumer in my previous years. No shade if you have. And these core flavors that Chef Bobby McFarland, who is our company chef, helped create are just so spectacular and complex. We have spicy cucumber mint. We have blueberry yuzu lavender. We have some summer seasonal flavors that just came out. Guava prickly pear is the one I had
Ooh.
last night. And they're lower dosages of THC, so it's not like they're gonna like really mess you up, but they're more designed to sort of help you unwind in a social situation while staying rooted,
Mhm.
hence call out to tree, being tree
Love
time.
that.
And then because I am a performer at heart and a theater kid at heart, I also have a holiday entertainment group that I launched
Ooh.
called the Sleigh Bells. They are adorable. This concept is Marilyn Monroe meets Mrs. Claus, and they are available to book in November and December during the holiday season. It is trios of, vintage dressed festive ladies that go out and sing a cappella Christmas songs and contemporary songs and classic songs that are done in the style of the Andrews Sisters from the 1940s. So that scratches the performer and the music director in me for sure.
That's so cool. That, like, just the way you have so many different, like, it branches out in all different directions. And that just shows your creativity also and just your drive. And I
And my
love,
insanity.
yeah, but it's awesome. And it's also helping to, like, spread all your ideas share it with the world and help people enjoy them, which is really, really awesome.
I've spent a lot of time feeling weirdly ashamed about my appetite for entrepreneurship and creativity, but it's really, some of us are just built that way. Some of us are just built that way, and you've got to make the thing or you'll be miserable.
Mhm.
So the great thing about sleigh bells is it is seasonal. So, there's a very clear start and a very clear end date to that, whereas the other three ventures are running year round.
Which is really cool because then it also gives you like a little bit of like, oh, well, it's time for the sleigh bells. It's Christmas time. It's like a little something, and then it's
Mhm.
like you know when it'll finish, and then you can focus back on all your other ventures, which is really, really cool.
And you better believe I book them at the restaurants.
Ooh, yep.
So there's definitely a symbiotic
Mm-hmm.
relationship
Mm-hmm.
there.
Which is also really cool because I feel like I don't think I've ever really been to a restaurant, like, especially during the Christmas times, where they have that type of like entertainment, which is so, so cool. And I love the vintage of it all as well.
You gotta go.
I
You
know.
gotta
I
go.
need
Why?
to.
And they'll be there every Friday
Oh,
from
okay.
mid-November to Christmas Eve this year. So mark
Perfect.
your calendars, everyone.
Yep. Listeners, listen up. I wanted, before we kind of move tracks towards your podcast, I wanted to ask, I know that the restaurant and hospitality business can have a lot of challenges. What have been some of the bigger challenges that you guys have faced while creating and starting all your new ventures? And what have you guys kind of used? What tools have you used to combat that?
I mean, challenging is a mild way to put it. I certainly, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone listening that financially speaking, it's been a very uphill battle. It still is to this day. I think financial anxiety is what holds a lot of people back from pursuing an entrepreneurial endeavor. And I do get that as someone who bootstrapped all of these businesses. We don't have like an investment firm that's backing us. Um, it was difficult to secure the funding initially to launch it in the first place because restaurants are a very risky bet. Most of them don't survive even their first year in operation, so a bank is not really, jumping at the bit to give you a loan. Um, and as we've continued in operation, I mean, everybody, this is not a secret, everything has gotten more expensive. Everybody is feeling that right now. Gas is more expensive, eggs are more expensive, aluminum cans are more expensive, and labor is more expensive. And for a business like ours, a huge, huge cost factor is the hands that it takes to prepare and provide an awesome restaurant experience. And I wish more people could understand that about independent restaurants. You go out to eat, it is a premium. It is in many cases a luxury that not everybody has. But if you are seeing something on a menu that you're perceiving as being expensive, or you're shaking your fist in the air about a $13 or $14 signature cocktail on a menu, the reason why is because 30 to 35% of the price of that has to go to the hands that prepare it.
Mm.
And it's a unique challenge that our industry certainly has because the profit margins in restaurants are already very, very small. Um, what tools have we used to combat that? I would say that while claiming our authority in the hospitality space as quote unquote outsiders has been a challenge because it's not like we came up in the Raleigh restaurant scene as a chef or a bar manager or a general manager. We were perceived as outsiders from everybody who, who we knew, who were colleagues of ours and who we were hiring at the time. However, our skill sets from outside the industry is a huge strength. And I wish that more people from outside, your traditional hospitality world would consider coming in. The ability to bring sort of business operation skills from another perspective, the ability to bring in leadership coaching perspectives that we have from other industries, the ability to vision, to like have to be able to pull levers between, okay, like what's happening in the whirlwind today in this hour right now, and being also able to step back and look at the forest for the trees and look at the year as a whole and look at, okay, where are we going in the next year? Why are we going there? And why are we taking that route? You really have to be able to do both things. And in something that's so fast paced as hospitality, it's so easy to just get burdened with the everyday whirlwind of your operations.
Hmm. No, that's really cool,
I
especially.
hope I'm answering your question.
No, yes, very well too. Because I love how you're saying it really takes, yeah, different perspectives, especially like you guys not really coming, like you were saying, from the hospitality industry, but all your different perspectives is what is helping you guys create all these new ventures as well and help make people happy, which is really, really awesome. And it kind of helps other people who are thinking about going into the hospitality industry or just pursuing entrepreneurship themselves that it you can do it if you put your mind to it and just really like it really opens up the world.
It's very easy to romanticize like starting your own coffee shop or starting your own wine
Mm.
bar, particularly when you're in a professional situation that you do not like, that is sucking your soul. It's very easy to romanticize those things, but it's no joke. It's really no joke.
Mm.
However, I still would say I would encourage anybody who dreams of that, you should do it. You should go for it. Yes, it's hard. Yes, the concept may or may not last forever, but the person that you become while pursuing that will be way, way worth it.
Exactly. And that's such a great thing for any listeners or just anyone in general to hear and to think about when they go on in their life. And it because I feel like also in this day and age, there are a lot of people where since it's like the job market is very, I feel like it's slimming, that a lot of people are kind of,
Wild
yeah,
right now.
a lot of people are probably in the situation like you were saying where it's like they want to be doing one thing but don't have the resources to be doing it. So it is kind of nice to just, even though it's going to be hard, if you kind of put your mind to it, hey, it might work, it might not, but it'll help you as a person grow and change. And so I wanted to kind of switch gears to your podcast, Her Seat at the Table. I know that season 2 is coming up. So if you just kind of wanted to give a little background about Her Seat at the Table, what inspired you to create it, the different guests you have on, what's your kind of goal or mission with the podcast?
Yes, I guess I failed to mention that in the other endeavors question, but yes, I do have a podcast. I have to say, it has been so fun, but also very humbling to self produce a podcast. I truly didn't realize how much of a lift it was until now that I'm like, eyeballs deep in it.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, where this came from, I personally love podcasts. It is my medium. I am always in the car or on the go or running around the house trying to get things done. And I love listening to podcasts. Something that I learned and was incredibly surprised by pursuing restaurants was how lonely I felt. And even though I was doing it with my life partner, that in itself is a strain.
Hmm.
Many people end up pursuing small businesses, small family businesses with their spouse, but you can't be all things to each other all the time. And people who are in your life who might be supporting you are not necessarily able to relate to exactly what you're going through if they are also not an entrepreneur or they are not in your industry. And I I truly have never felt more isolated than a few years ago. And so I was looking for content to listen to because I felt like I could be like eavesdropping on someone else's conversation and feel like I wasn't by myself. And I was looking for restaurant podcasts, which I found, but most of the ones I found were hosted by men, and no shade to men, but they just had a little bit more of a financial and operational direct focus. Like it was a lot of very masculine energy. And so I'm like, all right, well, there's value there, but I'm a woman in restaurants and my experience is different from that. I'm also trying to think about how to care for my employees as a whole. I'm trying to think about how is my life and my body and myself going to change if I decide to enter into motherhood, which I did. Um, how is my perspective on the world going to change? And I couldn't, and then I could find these like female led podcasts that were great but not related to restaurants, and then I could find these male led podcasts about restaurants but that weren't related to sort of the squishy stuff that I was looking for. And it seemed to me like, okay, well, if no one has made this, then I'm going to try and make it myself. I was really lucky to participate in the James Beard Foundation's Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program 2 years ago. And that was the first time I had been in a room with 20 other women who were owners and operators of their own food and beverage businesses. And it was such a therapeutic experience for me. It was a 10-week program where I met with these women twice a week. And we went through, yes, a sort of a business school curriculum, but also we're just able to commune with each other and vent to each other and support each other and really, really get it. And it was changed my life. It was transformational for me. And so I thought, gosh, there have to be other people like me who are in food and beverage, who are in an owner operator role, and who are looking for validation and to feel seen about their experience. Because you can't really vent, you definitely can't vent about it to your employees. You can't really vent about it to your family and friends. And so where is that right room for you? Where is that table for you? And that's why I launched it. I also have had the privilege of meeting incredible women who are doing such cool things. And I hope that by tooting their horn, I might be able to share some inspiration or motivation or ideas with somebody else who might desperately need it. And that's why I started it. And I have had such a blast doing it. It's fun to catch up with friends. It's fun to learn new things and hear things from other people's perspectives. I'm sure you enjoy hosting this as well. I've really enjoyed it. So season two arrived in May of 2026, so we are here. Season two is live, and we'll have 20 episodes that roll out through the rest of the year.
I can only imagine, like you were saying, it's kind of hard, especially being a woman in the hospitality industry, because
Well, what I would say is like, and again, like I love men, no shade on men, but
exactly, no
they
shade.
but men tend to naturally thrive focusing on one thing, right? Like
Mhm.
one thing that is directly in front of their headlight, where women tend to be able to really have like full 180-degree peripheral vision and get a sense of what's going on all around them. It's why I can leave something on the counter and direct my husband to find it, and he can't find it. It's right there on the counter. Because that's not
Exactly.
where his headlight is in that moment. His
Mhm.
headlight is somewhere else, and he's blind to everything else. So it does make a great combination of skills, but it's just very different.
Which is so cool also that your podcast allows people to hear and also to be heard and to get that perspective of what it's like to be a woman in the hospitality industry, an entrepreneur, and just it gives you a more kind of rounded view, like you were saying, which is really, really cool. From season one, was there any stories or people that you really, really enjoyed talking to? And also for season, sorry, this is like a two-parter, but
No,
for
it's okay.
season
Go for
two,
it.
is there anything that you're like a specific episode or, well, not like specific, because I'm sure each episode is
Each episode is like my child. Like, I
exactly.
love them all. They're all my creations.
Is there anything kind of more different about season two, or you're getting more personal into it now that you've got kind of the flow of it, if you will?
Sure. Season one was an experiment, as most endeavors that I approach typically are. Season one, I couldn't quite claim the title of podcaster because I was having some feelings about that. And so I called it a conversation series. And I thought, cool, let me just record 5 conversations and see how it goes. And the first one that I did was pretty extraordinary. I was able to host Vivian Howard, who is an award-winning chef and has just a swath of incredible media success, cookbooks. She just opened a new restaurant in Duck on the Outer Banks in North Carolina called Theodosia. She's incredible. And Preeti Was of Chini Emporium, Caroline Morrison of the Fiction Kitchen, which is Raleigh, one of Raleigh's first fully vegan restaurants, as
Yes.
well as Samantha Cote, who is an ice cream maker based in Durham. I hosted these 4 women, and the topic of the conversation was, I also was 1,000 months pregnant at the time of hosting this panel, and so this was my second child, and I knew my role in this business is about to shift permanently, and I can't quite see on the other side of it. So can you 4 women tell me about times in your restaurant journey where your role evolved and your role changed in a way that you might not have been able to fully see, and what was that like for you? And I was going to have those conversations anyway with these 4 women, and I just decided, well, let's see if let's record it, let's put it
Yeah.
down and share it with other people who might benefit from it. So that's the pilot episode of the entire podcast from season 1. Season 2, my first episode that I released on May 4th is a live interview with James Beard award-winning restaurateur Mali Irani, who's based in Asheville, and her restaurants are Chai Pani, Botiwala, and she also has a spice company, and she just released her first memoir. So the conversation was about her new memoir, Service Ready, and I love that conversation because to me, she's like me in 15 years. Like I just she's an empath, she's a mom, she is really brings this wonderful feminine maternal energy to her leadership style, which I never saw in corporate America. It was like, looked down upon to be perceived as feminine in that way, but she makes it look like such a strength. And that was a really great conversation. I would highly recommend everybody check that out. For the rest of the season, I think what you'll find a very diverse range of women and different facets of hospitality, different roles in hospitality. I'm talking to chefs, I'm talking to sommeliers, I'm talking to distillers, coffee people, agriculture people, food and business advocacy experts. It's just a really great variety of perspectives to have. And I am like not even scratching the surface because every conversation leads to a new topic or a new question or a new person to meet. And I really am excited to see where this path takes me with her seat at the table.
That's awesome. And I can only imagine the episodes coming up this season are going to be so, so cool. The platform that you're giving people to talk about themselves, their experiences, and also help listeners also kind of that might be going through the same thing. It's really, really awesome. The last kind of questions, I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to young women hoping to enter the restaurant or just the business world in general?
I want young women to feel permission to pursue joy, period. Pursue what excites you and what brings you joy, because there are a lot of systems out there that are constructed to keep women down, keep women muted. And I am a firm believer that joy is a very powerful form of resistance. So pursue what lights you up, pursue what brings you joy, no matter how silly or whimsical it seems to other people.
And that's amazing. And that's something I feel like every person in the world should be something that they think about in their everyday life, in everything that they do. The intention should be to bring joy and happiness to yourself and to others, which is so, so awesome. But before this cuts us off, I just want to say thank you so, so much again for coming on. It was amazing talking to you. You are amazing, and just everything that you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all for listening to Oak City Move. Once again, I am your host, Sophia Magnanini, and if you're interested in listening to this episode again or to past episodes of the show, you can go to wknc.org/podcasts and make sure to tune into our show every other Monday on WKNC 88.1 FM Raleigh. Have a great day.